This video is brought to you by Dbrand. To buy the best fitting skin for your phone or tablet, please visit dbrand.com. The 1-year upgrade. It's a tricky recommendation under the best of situations, but this year's Google upgrade path is also complicated by a rather stark shift in consumer direction. If you're currently rocking the Nexus 6P, is the Pixel XL enough of an upgrade to part you and your hard-earned cash? It's time for a showdown. First, a little confession. I've never been the biggest Nexus fan. I've always appreciated that Google was instrumental in starting the budget-busting discussion, which really came to fruition this year. But as individual devices, they really weren't my jam. This was compounded by the fact that I genuinely prefer smaller phones, and last year's LG-built Nexus 5X was an inoffensive, if somewhat underwhelming, option for stock Android. Only after receiving the Pixel XL have I been able to spend any significant time with the Nexus 6P. But enough about me, what we have here represents a significant shift for a company to achieve. We're not talking Galaxy S6 to S7 refinement, we're talking about appealing to completely different customer demographics. The 6P exits the scene as the peak of developer-focused handsets. The Pixel is Google's first attempt at a soft-around-the-edges consumer all-rounder. As such, the design languages are pretty different. Sure, aluminum is used for both, but the Nexus has a harder or more professional look, while the Pixel strives for a friendlier first impression. In looking at the more unique aesthetic elements, I'll personally take the Bender-Rodriguez camera strip on the 6P over the glass back on the Pixel. We're working with the same screen resolutions, though stretched a tiny bit further on the larger Nexus display, and the Pixel outperforms the 6P for maximum screen brightness. Now, the Nexus represents one of the best performers of last year to use Qualcomm's controversial Snapdragon 810 chipset. It shouldn't come as any surprise that even though Google is underclocking the Snapdragon 821 in the Pixel, it scores an easy victory. Looking at one of the toughest gaming benchmarks we can show, Marvel Future Fight struggles on the 6P, where it's much easier to keep a smoother frame rate on the Pixel. After a handful of missions, the Nexus is also significantly warmer to the touch. The 810 just won't go down in the books as a great processor, but the 6P does better than most in getting the most out of it. Looking at photography, the Pixel features a subtle but critical improvement to camera performance. Neither has hardware OIS, so tying stabilization to the phone's gyro is inspired, especially as the Nexus lacks any software stabilization when shooting 4K video. Output for photos in good light is fairly similar, especially for all of Google's auto HDR processing, and both are some of the best performers you'll find for slow motion video. But gyro-enabled software stabilization for video works very well in calming down the shake in most shots. The audio situation is something of a tie. We've heard better stereo phone sound, but between these front-facing speakers and the bottom-firing Pixel mono speaker, we'll happily choose the Nexus. The script flips on headphone playback though, where the Pixel represents small but significant improvements to audio quality, noise, dynamic range, and includes a slightly more powerful amp. Nothing earth-shattering, but the Pixel does pack the better jack. Lastly, looking at battery life, both phones have the same size battery, but with the more efficient chipset and smaller screen, we see improvements to runtime on the Pixel. In our media test, streaming 30 minutes of HD video over Wi-Fi at 190 lux, our 1-year-old Nexus drained 7%, while the Pixel drained 5%. We originally messed up our first battery run on the Pixel XL in our iPhone comparison, but more recent tests are generating more consistent results. As this was a community Nexus here at Pocketnow, we sort of lost the charger which came with our 6P, so while it's not a true, fair, out-of-the-box comparison, using the Pixel charger for both phones, after 30 minutes, the XL hits a 37% recharge, while the Nexus topped off at 34%. It should be mentioned again, the Nexus was also warmer to the touch while recharging. So let's wrap this up. Where does that leave us between the Nexus 6P and the Pixel XL? 1-year upgrades are tough. A part of the issue hinges on the fact that the Nexus has never really had a unified brand identity. Each manufacturer involved put its own spin on a Google-branded device. The sentiment also remains that the Nexus was a far more economical solution for hardware specs which don't feel that much more evolved now that we've moved on to the Pixel. Google's new consumer focus seems to come with a healthier margin on each device sold. So, should you upgrade? We're inclined to lean towards no, unless gaming performance has been an issue, you can't wait for the new assistant, or you really want those gyro improvements to the camera. For people who want to make sure they're using the newest version of Android with the most complete version of Google's vision, a sleeker launcher, the fingerprint sensor shortcut, and fingers crossed for Verizon users, timely updates, well, the Pixel's the only game in town, and that means moving up to a premium price tag. Pocketnow's Google Pixel coverage is brought to you by dbrand. Check out dbrand.com for unlimited customization and real-time preview that even includes an old-school Nexus back for your brand new Pixel. dbrand skins are designed to add grip and texture while protecting your investment from scratches and smudges. They ship worldwide, and Pixel skins start at under $10. Hit the link in the description for more info. As always, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to this channel for our full Pixel coverage and help us out with some sharing on your favorite social networks. For Pocketnow, I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, some gadget guy on Twitter and Instagram, and I will catch you all on the next comparison.